From Chicago studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Samana Siddiqui. First, the headlines. Jacob Chansley, the so-called QAnon shaman, sentenced to 41 months for January 6 role. Bernie Sanders says no on $778 billion Pentagon budget vote. American Muslims ask theaters nationwide to drop Islamophobic Indian film. Polish forces again attack refugees trying to enter Europe. Homicide, a top cause of maternal death. Our top story tonight. Jacob Chansley, the so-called QAnon shaman, was convicted Wednesday morning for his role in the January 6 attack on the U.S. Capitol. The Justice Department had asked for a harsher sentence as a way to set an example among the January 6 rioters. Chansley is one of the first felony defendants among more than 660 Capitol riot cases to receive a punishment. Chansley, with his choice of dress, became emblematic of a barbaric crowd. Judge Royce Lamberth had kept Chansley in jail since his arrest. However, Lamberth did order corrections officials to provide him organic food on his claim of religious requirements. U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders said he would vote against the 2022 National Defense Authorization Act because it enriches the military-industrial complex. Sanders, who is also chair of the Senate Budget Committee, said this is at the expense of desperately needed social programs and climate action. The Vermont Democrat said many of his colleagues say there isn't enough money to expand Medicare, guarantee paid family and medical leave, and address the climate crisis. Yet, Sanders said, the Senate will be voting on an annual $778 billion defense budget. That is $37 billion more than former President Donald Trump's last defense budget. Sanders said the Defense Department continues to have massive fraud and cost overruns. It has also not successfully completed an independent audit. A coalition of American Muslim organizations is calling on movie theaters in the U.S. to drop a newly released Bollywood film because of its blatant Islamophobia. The Council on American Islamic Relations, Justice for All, and the Indian American Muslim Council say the film Suryavanshi spreads disgusting and dangerous anti-Muslim propaganda inspired by the fascist Hindutva movement. The movie stokes the Indian love jihad conspiracy theory, which alleges that Indian Muslim men lure Hindu women into converting to Islam by seducing them. The film is also filled with scenes depicting Indian Muslims as disloyal and violent extremists who should be subjugated to India's Hindu majority. An op-ed published in the Washington Post Monday said every third frame of the film is a blood-curdling Islamophobic image. The movie also attempts to justify the 2019 abrogation of Article 370 of the Indian Constitution, which stripped the state of Jammu and Kashmir of its autonomy. America is the second largest market for Bollywood films internationally. It was a pre-game tailgate party for the home team, but with a distinctly Arab flair. Halal lamb parsley burgers were served alongside spreads of hummus, baba ghanoush, and a thick yogurt called lebne with fresh pita for dipping. New York Jets head coach Robert Saleh inspired the Sunday morning celebration before the team took on the Buffalo Bills. The Arab American is the first Muslim head coach in the NFL. The party at Metlife Stadium attracted about 24 die-hard Jets fans as well as new fans. Paterson, New Jersey Mayor Andre Sayer organized the event with family and friends to pay tribute to the Jets and Saleh, despite being a Giants fan himself. Polish forces fired tear gas and deployed water cannons against refugees trying to cross the Belarusian border Tuesday. The attack sparked accusations from Belarus that Poland was trying to escalate the crisis. Polish border guards estimate up to 4,000 refugees are camped out along the border between Poland and Belarus. 15,000 Polish soldiers are busy blocking them. The conditions there are increasingly dire with freezing temperatures. Poland's defense ministry said on Tuesday the refugees were trying to destroy the fence and cross over into Poland. Belarusian Foreign Ministry spokesman Anatoly Glaz accused Poland of worsening the problem. Russia also condemned Poland's use of tear gas and water cannons against the migrants. At least 11 migrants have died on both sides since the summer influx, according to aid groups. In 2015, Salman Butt, the chief editor of the Islam 21C website, was named by the British government as a person who legitimizes terrorism. The government now admits that it was wrong and apologized to Butt on Monday. Aidan Eardley, legal counsel for Home Secretary Priti Patel, said in court the government accepts that it was wholly false to allege that Butt is an extremist hate preacher. Eardley said the government is sorry for the harm caused and for maintaining the allegation for so long. After Butt's legal challenge to the false accusation, the Home Office agreed to delete his name from the press release and pay him compensation and legal costs. A young British Muslim who died while reportedly trying to save the life of an elderly woman is being hailed as a hero. 20-year-old Ali Abu Bakr Ali intervened after a pensioner was attacked in West London last Friday, according to a news report. Ali reportedly stepped in to help 82-year-old Betty Walsh, who had been stabbed and punched near her home in West London's Brentford neighbourhood. A Kingston University student of Somali heritage, Ali was coaching a boys' team at Chiswick Gators Basketball Club hours before the incident. A GoFundMe page set up for donations in Ali's honour surpassed $120,000 in 2 days. The suspect, Norris Henry, appeared in Uxbridge Magistrates Court on Monday. The BBC reports that Henry is charged with Ali's murder as well as the attempted murder of Walsh. He will appear at London's Central Criminal Court on Wednesday. Hindutva extremists attacked and set fire to the home of a former foreign minister in the city of Nainital in northern India on Monday. Salman Khurshid, a Muslim from the opposition Congress Party, published a book in which he compared Hindu nationalism flourishing under Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to extremist groups such as ISIS. Local police chief Jagdish Chandra told the AFP the attackers threw stones, broke several windows, and ransacked the door before setting the house on fire. Khurshid served as foreign minister from 2012 to 2014. He was away with his family at the time of the incident. Khurshid later posted images of the aftermath of the attack on social media. 26-year-old Saddam Bani Aoudeh was killed on Tuesday at dawn when Israeli troops fired at a car in the occupied West Bank. Palestinians are routinely killed as they resist Israeli forces entering Palestinian-administered towns to make arrests or after demonstrations. Among those killed are children. More about this in this report by Saleh Farouk and Assad Khan.
Israeli authorities chase Palestinian children to their graves, says Alet Nababta, a 54-year-old woman, who was clinging onto her son's grave as authorities mercilessly shoved her away. Alet Nababta's son had died 4 years ago, but since then, she has been living under the fear of her son's grave being removed. Her son is buried in El Yusufi Cemetery, which is one of the oldest cemeteries in Palestine. Now, Israeli authorities are erasing the part of this cemetery near Al-Aqsa Mosque to construct a Jewish national park. Upon knowing this plan of the Israeli authorities, Alet Nababta rushed to the graveyard. When the Israeli police tried to push her away, Nababta threw her body on her son's grave and cried, "Bury me here." She also added, "Here is our cemetery. Where else do we bury them? Every day we come back here fearing that the grave will be bulldozed. As a mother, what do you think my feelings will be when I watch them try to raise over my son's grave?" Pain, and heartbreak. Up until now, more than 300 Palestinian children have been killed by Israeli forces. Mustafa Abu Zahra, the head of the Islamic Cemetery Care Committee in Jerusalem, said that the cemetery is an Islamic endowment land, and the Muslims buried in it are martyrs. Israeli authorities should respect the sanctity of the dead, and the attack on it must stop.
Pregnant women in the United States die by homicide more often than pregnancy-related causes, a recent study shows, and they are frequently killed by a partner. The study found that pregnant or postpartum women die by homicide at more than twice the rate than that of bleeding or placental disorders, which are leading causes of pregnancy-related deaths. The study also found that becoming pregnant increases the risk of death by homicide for women between the ages of 10 and 44 years. As well, it found that pregnant women are killed at a 16% higher rate than women who are not pregnant. The study was published last month in the medical journal Obstetrics and Gynecology. It analyzed data for deaths in all 50 U.S. states from 2018 and 2019 using information from the CDC's National Center for Health Statistics database. A top UN representative in Afghanistan on Sunday met with women religious scholars in the capital, Kabul. They discussed aspects of Islamic law and issues concerning the rights of girls and women to study and work. The UN's Deputy Special Representative for the country, Mette Knudsen, has held several rounds of talks, including with the Taliban. Knudsen addressed various issues, including the need for humanitarian aid. Coming up next after the break is our in-depth analysis segment, so stay tuned and we'll be right back after these messages.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse, walk a mile in my shoes.
Despite the development of a COVID-19 vaccine, millions around the world will not have access. We need a vaccine that's free and available to everyone, everywhere. It's time for a people's vaccine.
They took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad! You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Welcome back. Next is our analysis segment with Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid. Over to you, Imam Mujahid.
Thank you, Samana. Winter is coming and projections are really troublesome. Europe is slated to get 500,000 deaths by February 2022. And in the United States, already infections are picking up. So where the world is heading, there is someone who is keeping an eye on these things. And this is a professor of the University of Washington, Dr. Ali Muqdad. Welcome to Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you for having me, brother.
Professor, this winter is coming and infection in the United States is picking up. So how this winter is projected to be like?
We're now projecting about 120,000 deaths between now and March 1st. And if 95% of Americans wear a mask, we are projecting 69,000 deaths left. So it's very important for all of us to remember that vaccines and masks will save our lives. Yes, we are projecting a surge right now. It will peak in mid-January. In terms of infections, mortality will peak the first week of February, and it will start coming down slowly after that.
So you're thinking of the holiday season, people will be careless and it will contribute, and winter is already there. So you expect it to peak in January. So what numbers we are looking at on the daily basis in January?
We're looking right now at our peak in terms of mortality, about 1,100 deaths a day when we peak. We will have less mortality this winter than what we have seen last summer and last winter, simply because more people are vaccinated. And the vaccines are highly effective against hospitalization and mortality, less effective without a booster or a third dose against infection. And that's why you see a rise in cases in many states that have high vaccination rate, because simply the people who received their vaccine in these states were early adopters of the vaccination campaign, and they received their vaccine by April. And now we have a waning immunity among those people unless they get a booster.
So booster, is there any campaign for people to really focus on booster? I mean, people who have taken vaccine, they're taking it easy. I mean, I was in a function just last weekend. There were 800 people and hardly anybody with mask.
No, that's not a good strategy. Let me explain it briefly. We have plenty of evidence right now that after 6 months of receiving your second dose, your immunity goes down against infection to about 20%, especially from Pfizer. It's a little bit higher in terms of if you are using Moderna. So it's very important for all of us to remember that fully vaccinated should be defined not 2 doses, but 3 doses right now. And that's what we do with all other vaccination. For many of us, we have 2 measles right now for our children, 2 measles doses. We have 3 DTP, 3 doses. We have 2 shingle doses. I mean, it's very important for us to remember this is a novel virus. The data right now and the science right now is telling us we need 3 shots to be fully protected, not 2 shots.
What are the chances that Moderna and Pfizer people will come back and say, well, every year you need to have 3 shots?
It's very possible. Look at the flu. We take a shot every year. Look at the Spanish flu pandemic. Right now, H1N1, it's still circulating, and we need to take a vaccine for flu every year. So it's very possibility for all of us to be prepared. And many countries, by the way, right now in Europe, for example, England is preparing itself to provide a yearly vaccination for COVID-19.
Professor Moqtaad, one question troubles me is that in Europe, your projection, which World Health Organization in Europe has been talking about, is by February, they will have 500,000 deaths. And Europe is more vaccinated than the United States.
Exactly. So what's happening right now in Europe, it's very important to remind everybody. Yes, many countries in Europe have a higher vaccination rate than we do here have in the United States. So that's very true. But also they have the same problem that we are facing, waning immunity. Many of their people received their vaccine more than 6 months ago, and they are in a need of a booster in order to protect themselves from infection. So you'll see a rise in infections in Europe, but we're not seeing a proportional rise in mortality simply because the vaccines are highly effective for protection against hospitalization and mortality. Also, what's happening in Europe, in many countries right now, they're reversing it. Mobility increased and mask wearing went down. And that's why you see a combination of behavior, waning immunity, and seasonality of the virus. We're coming into winter. All of us are moving indoors. No more fresh air. The virus is more likely to be spreading indoors among people who are taking off their mask, sitting around a dinner table. That's why you see the surge in Europe. What's important to remember when you see a surge in Europe, what we have seen throughout this pandemic, they're ahead of us like 3 weeks. Whatever happens in Europe is going to happen here, given the conditions are the same. So look at the United States right now. We have high vaccination rate in many places, but we have a waning immunity problem. Mobility is very high. In many states right now, mobility is similar or even higher than what you used to have pre-COVID-19. And mask wearing in the United States is about 32%. Unfortunately, we're entering into winter with the holiday season and all the mobility and activities around the holidays. We're expecting a surge.
So do you expect another series of lockdown and the mandate that people cannot gather publicly and the congregations will be stopped and things like that?
I don't think so. Countries do not have any more an appetite for mandates. So what they are trying to do right now is having a mandate to basically encourage people to get the vaccine. You can't get into a restaurant without showing a proof of vaccination. And that's what many European countries are doing. And when all of these are failing, some European countries right now, they have a curfew at night. Netherlands is already starting a curfew at night. So some countries are doing this on a geographic location, but not at the national level, because there is a balance between livelihood and between lives. And in many countries, as you know, they are suffering economically and they can't afford to shut down.
Professor Moqtaad, this pandemic death have been around all over, but the way it happened in India was extremely unique. And it seems like a tsunami of deaths, and people were unable to even bury their people or cremate their people as Hindus do, and they were throwing bodies left and right. Now, BBC report says that they have identified a gene which makes South Asians more susceptible to this virus. What are your thoughts about that?
I disagree. I don't think it's genetic. If you look at what happened in India because of the Delta variant, India, take for example, Delhi. And Delhi, before Delta hit, they had about 67% of people infected already. And they felt they're safe. They've been infected, so they can keep going, doing our businesses as usual. And what happened, Delta arrived, and Delta was more infectious, and Delta is an escape variant. Even if you've been exposed and got COVID-19 before, Alpha variant or other variants, you were infected. So it really spread so fast in India. But when you look at India, for example, compare it to Bangladesh and Pakistan, we didn't see that high rates of mortality in Pakistan, for example. They're a similar country, they're similar genetically, same people in a way. I mean, they were one country. So I don't think it's genetic. It's simply Delta variant that has happened and hit them hard. And unfortunately, because it happened first in India, many other countries learned their lessons and they put their guards up and they were safe. And India, unfortunately, suffered a little bit more than the neighbors.
Professor Muqdad, while you're working at this number, I mean, you deal about the numbers of infections and death and pandemic, 15 million people dead around the world. Do you sometimes get depressed about working on these numbers?
Yes, definitely. It has been very difficult. I lost also 2 cousins, brothers, 3 days apart from COVID-19 in Lebanon. So my family, my nephew is not vaccinated because my family is in Lebanon. And I have a family in Yemen. They don't have vaccines and they're not vaccinated. So it has been very difficult for us counting, number of dead and number of infected. I know from personal experience, this is a loved person, a cousin, a brother, a father. So it has been very difficult for all of us. What has made it difficult, especially after last December, quite honestly, is the fact that we have a vaccine. It has been very hard on all of us and quite honestly depressing sometimes because we have a means to prevent all these mortalities. Over 150,000 deaths in the United States were after vaccines. I mean, we could have prevented all of these deaths. It has been very difficult for us. We get our message out every day and say, please get your vaccine, get your booster, wear a mask. Nobody is listening. And it has been very difficult at a time where somebody like me, I live in a country where we have plenty of vaccine. We're lucky to have plenty of vaccines and we should use them. And I have family who's waiting in line to get a vaccine. It's very difficult. On a personal level, on a human being level, as a Muslim, seeing all these people dying that I know could be prevented in the United States and elsewhere, preventing a death is very important in our religion and our culture and our beliefs. It has been very difficult, brother. It has been very difficult.
Thank you so much, Professor Muqdad, for your work. I know it's not easy, but it's rewarding. So many people get alerted and pay attention to the need to fix their act. I hope more and more people will listen that you are lucky to have a vaccine and your relatives and my relatives and millions of people around the world simply don't have access to it. It's a great state indeed. Thank you so much, Professor.
Thank you. And assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for your time. Back to you, Samana.
Thank you. That's all from our Chicago studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can find previous episodes and more on our YouTube or Facebook. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Salam and good night.